Welcome to the Rum Ration Co-op podcast. I'm Rejoy, and with me is my fellow history geek, Colin. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the most polarizing figure in Canadian military history, Sir Sam Hughes. Now, we mentioned him back in episode 16 when we dissected the Ross rifle, but although he didn't invent the weapon, you really can't understand the rifle without, well, understanding the man, can you, Colin?
No, you can't. I think we also touched on him in episode 23, I think it was, about Currie, Sir Arthur Currie.
I think we did, yes.
They're very linked, but you're absolutely right there, Rejoice. Sam wasn't just a politician. He was a force of nature. He was born in Darlington, Upper Canada in 1853, so before Confederation. He grew up in a family that was deeply rooted in Northern Ireland and the fierce loyalty of the Orange Order. He was an athlete, a teacher, a newspaper editor, and eventually a member of Parliament. But the role that really defined him, and eventually the Canadian Army, was the militiaman. And we covered him with his bitter rivalry to Arthur Currie, like I mentioned, but we also detailed Currie and his tremendous contributions to the Canada's military legacy. And the weird thing is how closely entwined the two are.
Oh, very true. And in regards to the Orange Order, that had nothing to do with trying to import oranges into the province, did it?
Or keep order of the oranges that were already here.
No, because that's also a very important job, keeping order of the oranges that are flooding the market.
Well, because they're round and they roll, like they'll roll off the shelf if you're not careful.
And they are orange. So
they are.
But we digress. Sir Sam Hughes, former teacher, newspaper proprietor, and, quote, particularly aggressive lacrosse player.
That says a lot.
That says a lot right there. Yeah, says a lot right there. Hughes brought a pugnacious street fighter energy to the cabinet. He was a man of unbounded enthusiasm, whose manic drive birthed the Canadian Expeditionary Force, the CEF, in record time. So Sir Sam Hughes had a deep, lifelong connection to, once again, the Orange Order, which heavily influenced both his political views and, again, had nothing to do with his love for fruit. This is something completely different. It influenced his political views and his military philosophy, which we will see it'll come up again and again. Hughes was born into a family from Northern Ireland that was fiercely Protestant. Like you said, I think you talked about that a little bit earlier on, Colin, and the fact that the Irish roots. And it was steeped in the fierce Orange Order loyalty.
That's right. And he officially became a member of the Orange Order. And I guess we keep making jokes about it, but for people who don't know what the Orange Order is, essentially it's called the Loyal Orient Institution is its official name, commonly known as the Orange Order. And it's an international Protestant fraternal order based in Northern Ireland and primarily associated with the Ulster Protestants. So just to bear that in mind. So,
yes.
Spoiler alert, not big fans of Catholics. So he officially became a member of the Orange Order in Lindsay, Ontario, following his purchase of the Victoria Warder newspaper in 1885. And as an editor and a politician, he used this platform to promote strident anti-Catholicism, and he really pushed imperial centralization.
Yeah, it's interesting how your upbringing and your background can really influence your views later in life, until you learn otherwise or you open yourself up, which
absolutely
Sam Hughes, safe to say, did not do. But we covered, as you said earlier, we covered a lot of his background, his role in forming the CEF, because there are so many overlapping areas. And we talked about him in the episodes about the French Canadians serving in World War I and World War II. And again, you just mentioned this, Colin, his virulent hatred of Catholics and French Canadians in particular was a defining feature of his combative political style and often put him at odds with the population of Quebec, unsurprisingly.
Yeah, because the population of Quebec is vastly, 90% French Canadian, and most French Canadians are Catholic, so...
It goes together like French fries and gravy and curds.
Oh, look at you, getting a Poutine reference, yeah. But it's not particularly helpful to a national political party when Quebec, at the time, made up nearly a third of the entire population of Canada.
Yes.
And he was considered a nightmare cabinet colleague. Whose abrasive character and his strident anti-Catholicism nearly tore the military hierarchy apart before the first shot was fired in the First World War. So this episode will explore the counterintuitive and often chaotic legacy of arguably Canada's most controversial Minister of Militia and Defence, a man who was both a patriot, a visionary, and a bureaucratic wrecking ball. And this probably feels like a good moment to pause for our very first fantasy sponsor.
Indeed, this episode is brought to you by Orange Order Old Reserve, a bold, uncompromising whiskey with absolutely no room for dissenting notes.
Distilled in small batches and aged in barrels that refuse to acknowledge outside influence.
Tasting notes include burnt oak, imperial loyalty, and just a hint of political friction.
Orange Order Old Reserve. If you're not enjoying it, you're probably wrong.
Well, that sums up the tone of today's episode. Absolutely. So Sam Hughes was a man of many hats. He was an athlete, teacher, newspaper editor, and member of parliament. But check this out. He joined the militia at age 12.
Wow.
12. By 13, he was out with the 45th Battalion defending Canada against the Fenian raids.
That's pretty crazy.
It's pretty crazy. And for those of you who know your Canadian history, that was a real thing.
That was?
It was a real thing.
Some drunken Irishmen coming from the south, knocking on our doors.
And getting a drop of whiskey and heading back. He saw regular Canadian guys defending their homes and decided that, well, the citizen soldier was the pinnacle of manhood. That was his model.
Yeah, he was a big believer in the manliness ethos, and he was a scrapper from the start.
Yeah.
As a teacher in Toronto, he had an odd habit of chewing chalk during lessons. I can't imagine anything.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, maybe that's, explained a lot about him. But he would also use that as an opportunity to goad his students with inflammatory statements to get them to find their own voices. On the lacrosse field, you'd mentioned how he was particularly aggressive. He was known for delivering devastating checks that would send opponents through the wooden boards. He played to win, and he didn't care who he bruised in the process. And yes, before you start lighting up the comment section, Canadian lacrosse was played on pitches cordoned off by wooden boards or fences back when Sir Sam was playing it. I know it's not today.
Yes, let's keep in mind this was the 19th century.
Mm-hmm,
so
that's right.
was a different time and place. Now, if you think politicians today are aggressive, they've got nothing on Sam. In 1894, while he was already an MP, he got into a literal fist fight on the main street of Lindsay in the dead of winter. Now, that says a lot, in the dead of winter.
It does. It's a classic Sam Hughes story. A liberal blacksmith named Richard Kiley, who was needling Sam until Sam finally snapped and challenged him to a scrap right there in the snow. Now, maybe he might have misjudged his opponent because Kiley, did I mention he was a blacksmith? So
large one too, you said.
Large, yeah.
Yep.
He apparently had sledgehammer blows for his punches, and he drove Sam to the ground and pummeled him while Sam scuttled, rolled, and turtled in the mush, end quote, to avoid the beating.
You do what you can.
You do.
Oh, and he got beat all right in front of a lot of witnesses. So, following the brawl, Kiley had Hughes arrested for assault. you have to love that.
Add insult to injury.
Absolutely. And Hughes was charged and convicted, ultimately forced to pay a fine for the incident. So mortified by the defeat and the subsequent hounding by liberal newspapers, I suspect the defeat mortified him more than the hounding. Hughes used his own paper, The Warder, to defend his performance.
It was stellar.
This is a sign of things to come.
Yes.
He lamely claimed he had only just recovered from the flu and had been physically constrained by his heavy overcoat during the battle royale.
Yes.
Reminds me of some of the excuses I had in Gatetown too. I was constrained by the circumstances, sir. But that was the essence of Sam. Humiliated and bloodied, he just got back up and kept swinging. He constantly used his newspaper, the Lindsay Warder, as a weapon to slash at Catholics, liberals, and anyone who dared question the militia.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. He challenges a guy to a fight, a guy who's obviously bigger, stronger, whose whole job involves holding big, heavy objects in his hands all day and pounding them, gets the shit kicked out of him, and then gets arrested for instigating a fight, and then says, yes, it was my overcoat. Oh, good for him. But
I want to get the brand of that overcoat.
yes, but he was also a hardline temperance man, which is kind of ironic that we're
Interesting.
featuring him on the Rum Ration podcast and we're using fantasy sponsors about alcohol. He
Yes.
probably would not approve. I think.
No,
would be safe to
he
say.
would probably sue us. Yes.
Yes, because there was a legend that when he was a young militiaman, a sergeant tried to force whiskey down his throat. And
Oh.
Sam grabbed the sergeant's own rifle, struck him across the ear, fixed his bayonet, and warned him never to try it again. Sounds a little.
So, well, we know about the sledgehammer instance.
Right, true. But perhaps a little bit more accurately, as an example of his own extreme attitude towards alcohol, in 1906, while Hughes was the commanding officer of the 45th Victoria Regiment, a private arrived at a summer training camp, quote, rip-roaring drunk, end quote.
Ooh.
And an incensed Hughes forced the man to hand in his uniform immediately and leave the camp on the spot, wearing nothing but his undergarments.
Ooh.
Little extreme.
Little extreme. But that sounds accurate.
So maybe we should have done like an undergarment gin or something like that as a fantasy sponsor. So good you leave naked.
Oh, that's good. We won't go into the faint hints of what there.
Tasting notes include
abject fear and humiliation. So, but he basically believed he didn't like professional soldiers, did he? Colin?
No. He believed the professional soldier was basically a useless ornament, whereas the volunteer with a rifle had pluck and was a natural-born fighter. He spent years as the editor of the Lindsay Warder, shouting this from the rooftops, basically telling the British regulars that they couldn't shoot straight compared to a good old Canadian farm boy.
That's a bold statement indeed.
Yes.
Especially dealing with the British Army of the time. Well, his political career was just as aggressive. Elected as a Conservative MP in 1892, he was a loud advocate for Imperial Federation, which is not surprising. He wanted Canada to be a full partner in the British Empire, but he wanted it on Canadian terms. He wasn't just a patriot, he was an imperial nationalist. So again, like the little guy going up against the big guy, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's interesting military lens here as he's going towards the military portfolio more and more. Obviously, his interest, he joined when he was 12 years old, and when he gets elected, he's trying his best to become the Minister of Militia and Defense. And so most professionals at the time wanted a clean chain of command, but Sam wanted a militia that was better funded than the professional army because he had nothing but disregard for the pros. And he lobbied for more money for drill halls and armories. And quite frankly, I think about half of the drill halls or armories across the country right now were built under his, less than 10 years as Minister of Defense. But he often got his way by using intimidation tactics in Parliament, such as famously dismissing his critics by telling a crowd in London, Ontario, that his critics were merely, quote, yelping like a puppy dog chasing an express train, end quote. And by the time he got his ultimate goal and became that Minister of Militia and Defense in 1911, he was ready to remake the entire force in his image.
It already presents a picture of a very complicated character.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, obviously somebody who's quite distasteful. You don't want to hang around with him, but at the same time, effective at getting things done.
Yes.
And he wasn't shy about what he did.
No.
He famously told the House of Commons, quote, "I am the boss while I am here," unquote. Well, I'm not lying.
Nope.
He increased the defense budget from $3 million to $11 million in just a few years. That's a mere 267% increase. And that was before war broke out.
That's right.
267% increase. My God, if we had that today, that would be something. As you mentioned earlier on, Colin, or just now, he built 59 armories by 1915. And he pushed for a second Dominion arsenal in Lindsay.
Oh, wait. Sorry, where?
In Lindsay.
Oh, interesting. And he was the editor of the
Lindsay
Warder. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but, Lindsay, it's good streets.
Naturally, strategically located for defense industry.
The blacksmiths are there.
Fair enough. But I think it's important to remember that little point of pork barreling aspect.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. It'll come out more and more. So
Yeah.
he ignored his staff's recommendations to expand the permanent force, focusing entirely on, well, quote, his boys, unquote, in the militia, a hallmark of his disdain of professional soldiers, which, again, you had brought up earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
But his reputation for intimidation tactics was well-deserved. Prime Minister Robert Borden frequently had to rebuke him for the mischievous and perverse character of his speech and conduct, which were strong words at the time.
They were. And we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here, because I think it's really important to touch upon about a decade prior, when you had the Boer War, and he had jumped at the opportunity to try and get involved. So the first real test for Sam's theories came in his theories about the militiamen being so much superior to the regular force professional. His real test came in 1899 with the South African War, or the Second South African War.
Correct.
Sam saw this as a, quote, great advertisement for Canada, end quote, and he was desperate to command a Canadian contingent. But he ran into a brick wall that was named Major General Edward Hutton, who was a British general officer commanding in Canada.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear! Wouldn't be the first time he'd bump heads with the higher military command. So Hutton thought the Canadian militia, well, it was a joke. It was unfit for the field without 3 years of professional training. I mean, there was really nothing there, was there?
3 years, it's a lot.
It's a lot, yeah. And the feud between them was absolutely legendary. And in hindsight, less an exception, more a preview, because that's who Hughes is. He hadn't just found an enemy, he'd found a pattern. This is going to be the way he addresses things. So Hutton blocked Sam from an official command. So what did dear old Sam Hughes do? He basically told him the British regulars would be the ones surrendering to the Boers.
Right. And Sam didn't let a lack of an invitation or direct order forbidding him from deploying. That wouldn't let him stop him. So he paid his own way to South Africa as a civilian, and he talked his way into a paramilitary intelligence and transport role.
Incredible.
And while he was undoubtedly daring in the field, no one will ever question his courage, his physical courage. His willful disregard for authority and a habit of writing outrageous letters to the press criticizing British competence led to his ignominious dismissal and a return to Canada in 1900. Blind to his own arrogance, Hughes spent the rest of his life nursing the delusion that he had been wrongfully denied not one, but 2 Victoria Crosses for his exploits.
1 is good, 2 are better.
2's better, yes. This perceived slight hardened into a permanent paranoia, and by the time World War I broke out, he viewed the professional military advice as a personal conspiracy, a bias that would lead him to prioritize his own whims over the safety of Canadian lives.
Yeah, that's where it takes a dark turn. But when as you earlier said, his exploits or lack thereof in South Africa, there is if you kind of look at it, the young Winston Churchill, there's some similarities there.
There are.
Right? The willful disregard of orders, going on your own, talking your way into dangerous situations.
Writing outrageous letters.
Outrageous letters and criticizing. But, of course, the 2 characters are very, very different indeed. But I think that's where the similarities kind of end.
Well, I think Winston was in favor of the professionals as opposed to
very much so.
I could do so much better with my guys who drill once a month.
Yes, and a little more of country over self.
Correct.
Empire. As well. Empire over self. So specifically, as you mentioned, Colin, he claimed he'd been recommended for 2 Victoria Crosses, which... Well, we've covered the Victoria Cross in an earlier episode. That's right. And for those of you who are wondering what it takes to earn just even 1, you'll understand the ludicrousness of this claim. And he boasted that his, quote, reckless dash, unquote, at Uppington captured hundreds of prisoners with only 9 riflemen. Boers.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Notoriously difficult to capture, especially when you're on foot and they're on horses. He even claimed British General Warren told him, quote, "You have saved my life today, and may God bless you," unquote. Whether it was true or not, the story he sent back to Canada was clear. The Canadian volunteer was a world-class fighter. And just to put that claim in perspective, if you haven't listened to our Victoria Cross episode, I'm saying it again, it's really worth doing because, I mean, the Victoria Cross is not just any decoration. It is the highest recognition for valor. And we get into all that. So it's really worth listening to. And I think this is a good time to introduce our second fantasy sponsor, Colin.
That's right. This episode is brought to you by Uppington Field Report Rum, the spirit that turns bold claims into established fact.
Aged in the heat of the moment and finished in a barrel of selective memory.
Tasting notes include sun-baked dust, exaggerated returns, and the faint echo of, I was nearly decorated twice.
Absolutely. Uppington Field Report Rum, because the story you tell is the one that counts.
That's right. The one thing that's always a little not favorable to Sir Sam Hughes is for his 2 Victoria Cross claims is that there's no paperwork that goes along with it. And the British general that he apparently, Warren, there's no official notice of him saying thanks for saving my life.
No witnesses.
No letters.
No.
But anyway, back to the Sir Sam Hughes as Minister of Militia and Defense. When the First World War began, the professional soldiers, which of course we know what he thinks of them, at the militia headquarters had a plan. A cunning plan, it could be said.
A very cunning plan, yes.
It was called Memorandum C-1209, which was a carefully drafted mobilization scheme designed by the Chief of the General Staff, Willoughby Gwatkin.
Great name.
Great name. Hughes, never one to let a professional's expertise get in the way of a grand gesture, tossed C-1209 into the bin and instead went off with his own plan. And plan might be a bit of a stretch.
That's a bit of a stretch. Well, can you really blame him? I mean, nowadays you hear, Operation Epic Fury and, and jumping stars from above.
Not a politics podcast.
No, but just tossing out names there. And in comparison, you have Plan Memorandum C-1209.
Right.
A little
less inspiring. A little less inspiring.
Right. So you can't really, and for someone like Sam Hughes, who is big on inspiration,
possibly better for operational security though. Like,
well,
with the Russian spies, or think that C-1209 is going to do something.
Well, there are 2 words that Sam Hughes never could abide: operational and security. So anyway, his plan. He called it his fiery cross. Already much better. Fiery cross. He said, get this, he sent 226 telegrams directly to individual militia commanders, skipping the official districts and permanent force channels.
That's wild. That's completely wild. Completely wild. Like the brigades and divisions didn't even know what's happening. He's telegramming the COs directly.
And he through these communications, he was telling them to start recruiting immediately. So he ignored his chief of staff, Willoughby Gwatkin, man of the wonderful name, and ordered everyone to report to a patch of undeveloped woods in Quebec called Valcartier, which we are very, very familiar with, are we not?
I've donated much blood to Valcartier, and the mosquitoes there are well fed.
Yes, in my case, many tears too. And why a fiery cross? Because to Sir Sam, it was, quote, really a call to arms, like the fiery cross passing through the highlands of Scotland or the mountains of Ireland in former days, unquote. Don't think he ever went to Scotland, though.
No, but you could see as a proud, loyal Orange Order of the Buffalo, whatever they were, those Protestants. It was a Protestants from Scotland who went to Northern Ireland. Oh, man. We're going to get some hate mail for this one.
I like the Order of the Buffalo. Has nothing to do with the Habs game, does it? So.
No, sir. No, sir. That was, oh my God, that was the wrong podcast, but oh my God, what a game on Friday. That was incredible. So back to Sir Sam Hughes and his fiery cross, sending everyone off to Valcartier. Just the key words of what you had said was the undeveloped woods, meaning there was nothing there, no infrastructure whatsoever. It was pure chaos, but it actually worked. In less than 3 weeks, in a stroke of logistical genius and sheer willpower, his Conservative Party crony contractors built a military city for 30,000 men. It kind of shows you what unlimited cash and political will can do.
No, exactly, yes.
They laid 12 miles of water mains and built 3.5 miles of rifle ranges. And he raised his, quote, army of free men, end quote, of 33,000 citizens from across Canada and got them all to Valcartier in 6 weeks. And there was no WestJet or Air Canada reporter. It was all by train.
No.
And by telegram. But the cost of the speed was administrative chaos. By ignoring established channels, Hughes created a whirlwind of flurries of contradictory orders that left senior staff in the dark. Yeah, no kidding, because he was telegramming the COs directly. And units were in a constant state of reshuffling. So he had built this stage, but he kind of forgot to write the script.
He did, yeah. And speaking of script, Newton, my contrarian cat, just weighed in on the transportation aspect of it. He's asking if Via Rail was in charge in those days of getting troops.
No, that's why they actually managed to get there on time.
That's what he was saying, yes, because
if it was Via Rail, we'd still be waiting.
We'd still be waiting. Again, not a big fan of trains, Newton, my contrarian cat. So, and for those of you who are serving now, who have served in the past and are Quebec regiments who are very familiar with Valcartier, it gives you a good idea. Imagine you see the base today, huge, sprawling, great training facilities, great training area. Imagine going up there when there was absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So that sort of gives you an idea of the sheer immensity of his achievement. Again, a very contrarian character, but that is something that he really pulled off masterfully. And he was everywhere at Valcartier, reviewing troops from the back of an open motor car back of an open motor car. Motor cars, that was a big thing, brand new.
Technology, yeah.
Exactly. So not in the back of a horse and cart or anything, but motor car. And of course, naturally, interfering with training.
Naturally.
Has to. I mean, he even undermined officers in front of their men. Again, you have to. You take the good with the bad. The troops sang, "We are Sam Hughes' army," though the refrain was often, "We." I'm sorry, this is hilarious. We cannot shoot, we cannot march. What bloody good are we?
They probably sang the refrain after his car left. Apparently he really liked the song. I don't think he heard the whole thing.
And there you got, like the Canadian soldier's attitude with that dry sense of humor. But it didn't matter. Sam was proud. He wanted men who could, quote, pink the enemy every time and apparently sing.
That's right. Well, pink means shoot them.
That's right.
And that's important here because we're going to get into, we've covered the Ross rifle before. We're just going to talk a little bit about it here because we get to the kit. And this is where the infantry lens part gets painful because Sam was a Canada first kind of guy. And that meant the Ross rifle, also I think it was called the Oliver webbing, the equipment, which apparently,
that's right, yes.
It was also by one of his Conservative Party cronies that he got the contract to, and the troops absolutely hated it. It was overcomplicated. It would, when it got wet, it would shrink.
It would shrink. Yes.
Squish them all together. But most importantly, what he's mostly famous for is the Ross rifle. And as we discussed in episode 16, Sir Charles Ross, who had been a Scottish marksman and an inventor and a millionaire, he convinced the government to build a factory in Quebec City with, quote, zero initial cash outlay, end quote. So a little bit too good to be true, almost.
Yes. And as always, those things that sound too good to be true usually are too good to be true. And again, Colin, you and I have covered the Ross rifle in a past podcast. So for any of you who have not listened to that, again, this is a good time to sort of go back and listen to our episode on the Ross rifle because it gives you an idea of what that rifle was all about and why it's so well known in Canadian military history. Because the Ross rifle was a target shooter's dream. So it sounds like a natural fit for a rifleman.
Right.
It won the King's Medal at Bisley multiple times before the war. Sam called it the most perfect military rifle in every sense of the word today. Yes. But the chamber tolerances, now here's the problem. The chamber tolerances were too tight for mass-produced British ammunition. So you're talking about a marksman's rifle, but not an infantry weapon.
Not something that's going to be able to take mass-produced. It's not stamped out for the war.
Not stamped out for the war.
And
yeah.
so this finely tuned precision in the mud of the Ypres salient, which we've also covered in other episodes, it was a complete disaster.
Yeah.
The bolts jammed so tight that soldiers had to kick them open with their boot heels or hit them with their entrenching tools.
Yes.
And then there was the bolt blowback. If you reassembled it incorrectly after cleaning, the bolt could fly back into your face. Like seriously. And there was even a documented death from it, which we were a little bit surprised.
Indeed, and that is not the optimal effect that you want to have.
It doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in your soldiers. This bolt that you can't tell the difference from forwards and backwards. It might, if you don't get it right, say you're reassembling it in the dark, it might just blow back and knock your head off.
So not a good thing. But Sam's reaction to the reports of jamming was essentially to call the soldiers novices.
Yes, blame the victim. It's always a good way to do it.
And also blame the British supplied ammunition, because that was obviously shit, wasn't it? My God. If only they were using good old Canadian ammunition,
right,
then things would be fine. But they didn't. So damn them, damn their eyes. Even when his own son, Garnet, who was at the front, called it a, quote, shitty rifle, quote, his own, coming from his own son, whom he loved dearly, Sam still refused to back down. He fought every officer who tried to replace it, accusing them of political malice. It wasn't until Sir Douglas Haig personally ordered its replacement with the Lee Enfield in 1916 that the nightmare finally ended for the Canadian divisions. And Sir Douglas Haig commanded the BEF by that point, which included the Dominion forces. So he had to step in and say, we are not doing this anymore. Canadian troops will be equipped with the Lee Enfield.
Yeah, for those remaining Canadian troops who hadn't really tossed the Ross rifle and picked up.
Many did. Many did. Yeah. That's right. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So on that note, time for our final sponsor here. Over to you.
Oh, over to me. This episode is brought to you by, well, you had to expect this, Ross Rifle Reserve Gin, engineered for precision, not practicality.
Crystal clear, technically impressive, and known to seize up under adverse conditions.
Best enjoyed in controlled environments, far away from mud, stress, or reality.
Ross Rifle Reserve Gin. It works perfectly, just not when you really, really need it to. And it wasn't just a rifle. Sam also had a special interest in the MacAdam shovel, which was coincidentally patented by his own personal secretary. It was a shovel with a hole in it. No, that's not a typo. Because it was designed to be used as a shield.
I was just taking a sip of my coffee when you said that. Yeah. Just imagining, like, oh my God.
Well, sounds like you're in purgatory. You got those, those tasks that will never end. Wait, I have to fill up these sandbags with a shovel, but the sand keeps falling through as I shovel it.
Well, it couldn't stop a bullet close range either. That was the other best thing about it. It was pretty much completely useless. And it was too heavy for the men to carry as well. And, you got that hole in it. Right. So you're not going to be digging very deeply with that. So all in all, not a very effective piece of kit. General Alderson, commander of the 1st Division, reported it as absolutely useless. Which in military terms, it doesn't get clearer than that.
Nope, that's pretty clear.
But Sam told him to, quote, hold a tight hand, unquote, and kept pushing it. So this whole thing, again, here's that side of his character. It stinks of cronyism and corruption.
Yeah.
The patent for the MacAdam shovel was held by Sir Sam Hughes' female secretary, who was named the implement bore. So you had said it was his personal secretary. This is who it is. Mm-hmm. Female secretary. So
which was kind of rare back then.
It is, yeah, exactly. So maybe a bit of paternalism there. Who knows?
Perhaps.
And while 25,000 were purchased in Philadelphia at $1.35 each, $1.35 in 1915 or whenever it was, is a lot more than what it sounds like.
Oh yeah, because a Ross rifle costs around $20, I think.
That's right. So that gives you an idea.
Yeah.
They were eventually withdrawn from use and sold as scrap metal for only $1,400. So not only was it useless, expensive, and a waste of effort, it wasn't even made in Canada.
No. For a guy who's all Mr. Captain Canada and Mr. Cronyism, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe Lindsay didn't have a factory that could produce them.
If only they'd listened to his brilliance.
That's right.
Well, this points to Sam's larger problem, patronage and nepotism. He treated the army like a family business, or when I say family business, something more out of like Goodfellas.
That's right.
His brother John was the first commander at Valcartier.
Oh, wow. Who would have thought?
Well, and when a division commander was killed in 1916, Sam sent a cable, quote, "Give Garnet, 3rd Division, Sam."
His son Garnet.
Garnet is his son, yeah. So General Currie and others were disgusted by this. And although Currie only held his appointment due to Garnet's intervention at the start of the war on Currie's behalf with his father, a little awkward there. But Sam, bottom line, Currie believed in merit and Sam believed in Sam.
Well, yeah, there's no getting around that. And I think this picture of Sam Hughes is becoming clearer by the minute. By 1916, however, the war had outgrown Sam Hughes.
Yeah.
The voluntary spirit and pluck he championed was being replaced by industrial scale professionalism. Sam was out of the country at a third of the time, ignoring his office in Ottawa. Administrative chaos was everywhere. I mean, what you needed to get everything started in 1914 is one thing. By 1916, the world had changed. The war had changed. The military had changed. Sam Hughes was still operating in the world of 1914.
Yeah, the energy and enthusiasm that he'd used to just kind of kickstart something. But now it had gotten so big. You needed a system. You needed professionals. You needed coordination, very clear communications. And the reality is he was probably responsible more than anyone else for recruiting a huge number of Canadians who enrolled in the first couple of years. But that meant he was out of the office. And they didn't have cell phones. They didn't have easy ways of staying communication. And he just kind of ignored it all. And, you said it best, administrative chaos was everywhere. So Prime Minister Borden, who had initially admired Sam's energy at Valcartier and getting things going, he began to see Sam as a liability. And Borden noted that Sam was, quote, quite unbalanced, end quote, on matters involving his own insane egotism. He started stripping Sam of his powers. And if you go back and you look at the cabinet notes and you look at some of the briefings that are so well laid out in Tim Cook's book, it really shows you that Prime Minister Borden, he hesitated a long time. I think he was afraid of confrontation, particularly with Sam Hughes. But as he started stripping Sam of his powers, he created the War Purchasing Commission and the Imperial Munitions Board to handle contracts that Sam had previously mismanaged through the Shell Committee, handing out these prime contracts to his buddies and his cronies.
Yeah, exactly. In many ways, it's kind of, I suppose, to put it in perspective, you think of a small business that suddenly takes off and becomes very successful. You can't have that small business structure to operate anymore. It leads to inefficiency and, in this case, huge corruption, of course.
Yeah,
they did what they had to do at the start. Newton, my contrarian cat, says he feels Sam Hughes has been maligned and that we are we're horrible people. But essentially, that's what we're talking about here. So the final straw was Sam's attempt to set up a acting sub-militia council in London. London,
England,
England,
not
London, Ontario. Exactly. Which probably is not far from Lindsay, but who knows? So he actually wanted to do this in London, heart of the empire. He wanted to bypass Borden and the Canadian cabinet to maintain personal control over the troops in Europe. Ooh, you can see where that's going to go bad. He even promoted himself to Major General by forcing an order through the Militia Council when he was a minister.
And who approved those promotions? Oh, the minister.
Well, didn't get his Victoria Crosses, but he's sure as hell going to get his promotion. And let's not forget that this is a guy who had claimed he was entitled to and had been denied. Denied, Colin, 2, not 1, 2 Victoria Crosses for his actions during the South African War, the Second South African War. So there's a lot there. And again, it's incredible that he was able to function the way that he was functioning. Because, I mean, we talked about the Victoria Cross earlier, I keep bringing it up, but Charles Upham, I think, is the only one who's won 2 Victoria Crosses.
The only combatant officer.
Only combatant officer.
The other 2 others did it. They were doctors.
And, I mean, we cover that quite clearly in that episode. So Sam Hughes was no Charles Upham,
No,
was
he
he?
was no Charles Upham. No. But promoting himself to Major General was as petty as it was incredible. Hughes' vanity was as expansive as his energy. So in a power move that defined his mischievous conduct in the cabinet, he forced through a general order to promote himself, a civilian minister, to the rank of Major General. And to ensure that he held seniority over his own chief of staff, Willoughby Gwatkin, man of the best name ever, he backdated his promotion to 1912 when he actually only received it in 1914. Now that's petty.
Oh, it's incredible. I feel so bad for General Gwatkin there. You know, I mean, he probably became a drinker. It would have to be. I mean, in this case, you could really say that he was a petty officer.
Oh! You went there.
Had to.
All right. Borden warned Sam to stop assuming powers he didn't have. And Sam's response was a letter so insubordinate and so harsh that Borden had finally reached his limit. He told Sam that his attitude was wholly inconsistent with the principle of joint responsibility upon which constitutional government is based.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. And on November 11th, 1916, Sam Hughes was invited to resign.
Invited.
Those, of course, are early 20th century words. Invited to resign means the same thing today when you are being cashiered. So
We're fired.
Essentially, fired. That is essentially what it is. He did so with, quote, much satisfaction, unquote. But the bitterness remained. He spent the rest of the war on the backbenches, acting as a watchful eye, a very angry, very vocal, watchful eye, kind of like Sauron if you watch Lord of the Rings movies. That's who Sam Hughes became.
He never stopped fighting his rivals, real or imagined, and he was especially vicious towards Arthur Currie, who had succeeded him in influence and, I guess, star power, right? And he refused to give Sam's son Garnet the command that Sam thought he deserved.
Yes.
Right on cue, because we know that your cat is a huge supporter of Sam.
So Newton, my contrarian cat, claims that Garnet should have absolutely gotten the command.
Absolutely.
And this was just bullshit.
So it didn't happen, and the relationship between the two men soured as Currie consistently prioritized military merit over political patronage, despite what your cat would say. And this is a direct challenge to Hughes' typical methods, which was doling out favors to his buddies and cronies. And the rift became permanent when Currie successfully lobbied to break up the 5th Canadian Division, which Garnet Hughes commanded in England, to provide reinforcements for the 4 Canadian divisions already in the field. Now, this was a great move strategically because it ensured that the Canadian divisions in the field were much stronger, much more robust, and that's why they would do so well in things like the upcoming Battle of Amiens, which will be, spoiler alert, stay tuned for episode number 50. But this did not sit well for poor Garnet, of course, who got his division taken away, but his dad, Sam, thought that was a personal slight against him. So following his dismissal from cabinet in 1916, Hughes' existing paranoia surfaced and he became a vitriolic campaign of denunciation, labeling Currie a cowardly incompetent who was, quote, frivolous with Canadian lies, end quote. That's a really strong accusation.
Yeah, it's a terrible thing to say, especially when you consider you're absolutely dead on there, Colin. I mean, that's why the Canadians were like the iron fist. It's better to have fewer battalions that are there and divisions that are up to strength,
right?
Maybe even a little over strength if necessary, because they can hit with that extra power rather than, I don't know, 20 odd understrength battalions who are unable to achieve their objectives. So he didn't understand any of all that. For him, it was about the cronyism. He didn't care. His son is losing the command. That's all that
and his personal ego.
His personal ego, correct. So Hughes' attacks began in earnest in late 1918. So the war is drawing to an end. Very clear that the Allies are going to win this. And that's when he chooses to time his attacks. On October 1st, while the Canadian Corps was engaged in fierce fighting at Cambrai, Hughes wrote to Prime Minister Borden, accusing Currie of the, quote, needless massacre of our Canadian boys, unquote. He further alleged that Currie had intentionally butchered his men at Lens and Passchendaele simply to, quote, glorify the general in command, unquote. Unbelievable. And to make it impossible to maintain a 5th and 6th Division, thereby forcing the breakup of his son's command. So he really took this breakup of the command personally, and he did everything he could to malign Sir Arthur Currie.
Yeah, and we have to say this is October, so as we'll be covering in the next episode, the last 100 Days campaign had kicked off with the Canadians really at the tip of the spear. And
Absolutely.
Who was leading that, of course, was Currie. So who's getting a ton of international praise and press coverage is Currie, which is probably really aggravating Hughes.
Yes, yes.
And this is where, I think it really speaks a lot about the nature of his character, because here he is protected by Parliament privilege.
Yes.
So it's very important for those who don't understand. We have some American listeners and others around the world who don't understand. But as a member of Parliament, what you say in Parliament, you are protected. If you're within the Parliament building, you are protected from pursuit for legal claims afterwards.
Yep.
So Hughes delivered his most famous and damaging attack on March the 4th, 1919, in the House of Commons. In a 16-page diatribe, he focused on the capture of the village of Mons on the final day of the war, the 11th of November, 1918. And Hughes characterized that assault as a, quote, useless massacre, unquote, and needless slaughter, ordered only hours before the armistice. And he claimed that quote, you cannot find one Canadian soldier returning from France who will not curse the name of the officer who ordered the attack, end quote. And he demanded that Currie be, quote, tried summarily by court-martial and punished so far as the law would allow, end quote. That's some strong claims.
Very strong claims. And, like that kind of stuff, a lot of it, some of it will inevitably stick. And
unfortunately.
Sadly. And I think our sister battalion, the Black Watch, actually took part in that attack, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
And
the last soldier killed was a gentleman called Price, which I think I want to do an episode on one day. Not from the Black Watch, but he was from New Brunswick, and I've been to his grave.
Well, yeah, that's something certainly worth exploring and doing an episode on in its own right.
I think it's also important to remind people that we look back, you mentioned it when we were having dinner this week, about we take it for granted that we know how things are going to end because we're looking back at history. You said we're living through some incredible times right now, and we just don't really have the script for it. We don't know how it's going to go, so it feels very unsettling. Yeah. But the same sort of thing, like the threat of an armistice or the rumor of an armistice had already been going on for months and then weeks and then days. It was getting every day was going to be, this is the armistice. But it didn't mean you took your foot off the gas. You still had to keep advancing. So
yes, that's right. That's right. The momentum was with the Allies. You're obviously going to continue to push as much as possible. If anything, try and push the Germans right out of France if you can. Exactly. I mean, that's the objective. Exactly. Again, Newton, my contrarian cat, disagrees with that.
Oh, I know. And he knows what would have happened if, only Garnet Hughes had been there with the 5th Division.
That would be completely different. But that's exactly it. I mean, you don't know as a soldier on the ground, as a general officer. You're always planning and you're always executing your orders and pushing as much as you can. So a very unbelievably vicious kind of attack on what is undeniably one of the most successful commanders in the Allied Army of the First World War. Well, Sam Hughes, he looms large in our history.
Mm-hmm.
He died in 1921.
Yep.
But he stayed in the news for years afterward. His 1919 blistering attack on General Currie in Parliament left a real impact. I think this is why we're sort of talking about it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because Currie was slighted by the government of Canada, and there was an awkwardness that surrounded Canada's most famous general officer. He left the army, took over McGill University, turning it around a failing school and building the solid reputation that remains today. And I, as a McGill alum, am particularly grateful for that.
Mm-hmm.
So I noticed
as a father of a McGill student right now, I too am.
Yes, you are stuck in that corner despite your own personal. Yes, this is against that, but it's incredible. Currie was so talented and had skills in so many areas, and yet that little bit of ordure from Sam Hughes sort of clung to him, didn't it?
It clung to him, and unfortunately, I guess it's the same thing of any claim that you don't refute. I guess there's always two schools of thought, like just ignore it and hope it'll go away, but sometimes it doesn't and becomes established as fact, right?
Yeah.
And Currie chose to take the high road, and he initially remained silent in the face of the attacks from Hughes, though privately he was filled with impotent rage, and he felt, and I think justifiably, he felt abandoned by a government that refused to defend him firmly in Parliament because, Sir Sam Hughes was protected by parliamentary privilege, but someone else in Parliament could have got up and from the government in particular and defended Currie's record and defended Canada's actions, but they didn't.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Didn't. And so although Sam Hughes died in 1921, his allegations were kept alive by his supporters. It was pure revenge for the perceived slight against his son, and the poisonous narrative. It really took hold in the Canadian psyche, and suddenly this reputation started to build that Currie was a slaughterer and using the lives of Canadian soldiers to build his reputation.
Absolute nonsense. In 1927, the Port Hope Evening Guide, that incredible standard of journalism, known the world over, published an editorial by William Preston, also obviously an award-winning journalist, that repeated Hughes' claims of a, quote, useless waste of human life at Mons.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. So Currie finally snapped. I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And against the advice of his supporters, Currie sued for libel.
And the 1928 libel trial was held in Cobourg, Ontario. Shout out Cobourg, as my mother-in-law Carol lives. It saw senior military officers testify that the attack on Mons was a military necessity and that Currie had explicitly ordered that casualties be avoided. While Currie won the trial, the jury only awarded him $500 in damages, which kind of felt like he was being damned with faint praise.
Yeah.
And the extreme stress of the ghost of Sam Hughes had been haunting the courtroom, and it contributed to the nervous collapse of Currie and an early death at age 57. I hope he's not celebrating your cat, though. That'd be horrible.
Actually, I think he might be.
He might be. What a prick.
Because, he's a Sam Hughes guy.
He is a Sam Hughes guy.
He's a big fan of the Ross rifle. And the webbing you mentioned earlier.
The Oliver pattern.
Yes, he says it fits fine. He doesn't know what the problem is. Well, yeah, that's right. I mean, that's a horrible part of it all.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some things that you are just unable to sort of overcome. He won the trial.
Yeah.
But the stress likely led to his early death. And also probably the pent-up anger and emotion and, all of that came with it. Sam's bitterness had a long reach, affecting the legacy of the man who led the Canadian Corps to its greatest victories. I mean, I would say, in my mind, Sir Arthur Currie is the greatest Canadian general.
I agree.
Ever to take the field. And this is what, and Sam Hughes, for all of his effectiveness in 1914, should not be remembered in the same light. Cannot hold a candle to that man. And yet his slandering has kind of stuck a little bit. It's only now I think we're able to look back and be able to rehabilitate Sir Arthur Currie's reputation.
Yeah, and I would just like to say we took a lot of the source material from Tim Cook's book, Madman and the Butcher, and it was actually Rob Foster who I think suggested one of our very, very, very first episodes. He'd left a comment, so Rob had done phase training with us. Yes. And so thank you, Rob, for this. We're finally getting around to it. So it comes down to the basic question there, Rejoy. Was Sam Hughes a madman or was he a visionary?
See, Colin, here's the thing, and that is the most difficult thing to address. Like they both.
Yeah.
It can't be so black and white. You can't be one without the other or whatever it is. He was a visionary and a madman because without his almost insane energy in 1914, Canada might never have made it to France in force. I mean, Valcartier, that is attributed in its own right to him. He helped establish a self-image for Canadians as an independent nation, not just a British colony. Now, I mean, if you look back now and you look at empire and you look at colonialism, It's not just the Asian colonies that felt slighted by the home country.
Yeah.
Many Canadians were treated pretty poorly when they went over to the UK as colonials, and you're the bottom of the heap, so to speak. So Sam Hughes instilled this sense of pride, and that's in the regular everyday Canadian soldier, saying, you know what, we're not just as good as you, we're better. Whether it's true or not is something else, but it's that sense of pride. He fought to keep Canadian battalions together, which is also extremely important, because all the Dominion battalions were seen as reinforcements to be fed into the line to supplement the regular force troops. But he said, no, Canadian battalions together. And that ultimately allowed the Canadian Corps to become the shock troops of the Western Front.
Now, you're absolutely right. He was a man he could move a literal mountain in 3 weeks at Valcartier, but he was the last person you'd want managing that mountain once it was moved. And his legacy is the 60,000 dead and 170,000 wounded who fought in the force that he helped assemble. Like, originally the British had asked for, I think, 5,000 volunteers, and he delivered 33,000 that sailed like 6 weeks after the war, 7 weeks after the war broke out, and eventually 600,000 Canadians who would be enrolled. 425,000 or 450,000 who went over the UK into France. But yeah, he left a real mark.
Yeah, that's very well put. Well, he was wrong about the rifle.
Mm-hmm.
He was wrong about the webbing. He was wrong about the shovel.
We never mentioned the cardboard boots either.
Oh, the boots. Oh, yes. So your feet could really experience the mud at first hand as they disintegrated in
cheap
the
and easy
mud.
to make, but apparently wearing cardboard in mud, not so good.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thunk it? They look good in the picture.
They look very good in the picture, but didn't last long. But he was right about the spirit of the men.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And Colin, as former Reserve Army officers, we have to respect that. And we can probably thank him for the creation of for our beloved Royal Montreal Regiment.
Got it in there.
And with all truth. And one of the places where our beloved RMR trains on a regular basis is Valcartier.
Yes.
So the Canadian Corps became one of the finest fighting units in the world, and Sam Hughes, for all his faults, was the one who got the ball rolling.
He sure did. Well, cheers to that, Rejoy. And folks, if you enjoyed this episode, please spread the word, share, get a face tattoo of the Rum Ration podcast logo, and make a sacrificial offering in a secluded forest meadow during the next full moon. Or, if that's too hard for you, just subscribe. It might be a little bit easier.
Cheers to history.